The courtroom was unusually loud that morning. Cameras humming, whispers rippling through the gallery, the faint buzz of people expecting another viral moment from television's toughest judge. But no one, not even the producers who had seen hundreds of cases unfold before her bench, expected what was about to happen. Because this wasn't just a case about a parking ticket or a barking dog. It was the morning a woman walked into Judge Judy's courtroom and decided to challenge the very woman who wrote the playbook on courtroom authority. Her name was Karen Whitmore, a self-proclaimed law professor from California State University. At least that's what she claimed. She strutted through those double doors with a confidence so thick it almost fogged the air around her. Her heels clicked like punctuation marks, each one announcing she wasn't here to lose. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. When she reached the defendant's table, Karen dropped her bag loudly, adjusted her floral blouse, and smirked toward the camera. "I've studied law for years," she said to no one in particular. "Let's see if she can keep up." The audience exchanged looks, nervous laughter followed. Judge Judy hadn't even entered yet, and already the temperature in the room was rising. A bailiff leaned toward a producer. "She doesn't know who she's talking about," he muttered. The producer chuckled quietly. "Give her 5 minutes." Then the side door opened. Judy entered in calm, quiet, eyes sharp as glass. But for once, she didn't look like the force of nature viewers were used to seeing. Her steps were slower, her robe slightly looser, her expression unreadable. To the audience, it looked like age or fatigue, but to those who'd watched her for decades, that calmness was something else. The silence that came before a storm. The kind of silence that doesn't mean weakness, but readiness. Karen didn't stand when Judy entered. She kept scrolling on her phone. A small act, but in that courtroom it was blasphemy. Judy looked at her. No words, just a glance, and then sat down. Papers shuffled. Cameras zoomed. And then in that clipped, unmistakable tone that made her a household name, Judy said, "Let's get started." Karen smirked again. "Before we begin," she said, interrupting immediately, "I just want to clarify that I'm a law professor. I teach civil procedure and constitutional interpretation, so I might need to correct a few things as we go." Her voice was syrupy but edged. Every syllable dipped in arrogance. The courtroom froze. Even the camera operators hesitated, uncertain whether to zoom in or pan out. Judy leaned back slightly, her hands folded. Her expression didn't change. No frown, no smirk, nothing. "That's fine," Judy said calmly. "But you'll remember whose courtroom this is." Karen tilted her head, unimpressed. "Oh, I'm sure. I've seen the show. I just don't always agree with your methods. That one line must suck the air out of the room." The audience gasped. Somewhere in the back, a reporter from the local paper began scribbling notes. Judy still didn't react. She just flipped through the case file with clinical precision, as if she were handling a piece of evidence, not a human ego. And yet there was something different in her eyes. Something subtle. Not anger, not irritation. Something closer to curiosity, like she'd just spotted a flaw in a gemstone. Karen didn't notice. She was too busy performing. She quoted random legal terms, mispronounced Latin phrases, and interrupted every third sentence Judy tried to speak. "Actually," she'd begin, "that's not exactly correct under current academic interpretation." Her voice carried a smug rhythm, like a song she'd practiced. The gallery shifted uncomfortably. A few people whispered. A few smirked. But Judy stayed quiet. She let Karen talk. She let her explain. She let her show everyone exactly how far arrogance could go when no one stopped it. When Karen finally finished her monologue about academic frameworks, Judy closed the folder in front of her with one gentle motion. The soft sound echoed louder than any gavel. "Ms. Whitmore," she said softly, "you said you're a law professor, correct?" Karen nodded proudly. "Yes, civil law mostly. I've taught for years." Judy's gaze didn't waver. "And where exactly do you teach?" "California State," Karen replied instantly. "Los Angeles campus." Judy nodded again, her tone still calm. "Interesting." Karen folded her arms. "Why do you need a lesson plan?" The audience laughed nervously. Judy didn't smile. Instead, she glanced at her clerk, who quietly scribbled something on a notepad and slid it across the desk. Judy read it, raised one eyebrow, and looked back at Karen. "We'll come back to that," she said quietly. Something about her tone shifted. Barely, but enough to make even Karen pause. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a warning. It was a promise. The kind of promise that said, "You have no idea what's coming." And that was the moment the balance of power began to shift. Not with a shout, not with anger, but with silence. Judy had been underestimated before. People had mocked her style, her tone, her authority, but what they always forgot was that she never needed volume to win. All she needed was truth, and the patience to let arrogance bury itself. The bailiff cleared his throat. The cameras refocused. The audience waited. Judy turned the page of the file and said simply, "Let's continue." But behind that calm voice was something sharper, an invisible smile, the kind that only appears when the game has already begun. Karen didn't see it. The audience didn't either. But Judy knew. She already had the thread, and soon she'd pull it until the whole story unraveled in front of millions. If you believe arrogance always gets exposed, comment "Justice served" below, and keep watching, because what happens next will leave you speechless. The air inside the courtroom thickened with a kind of tension that could only exist between two women who refused to be outdone. One wielded arrogance like armor, the other patience like a weapon. The cameras caught every flicker, every smirk, every measured silence. Somewhere beyond the bright studio lights, millions of viewers were about to witness something they'd never seen before. Judge Judy on defense, her authority tested in her own courtroom by a woman who thought she could rewrite the rules. The plaintiff's case, on paper, was simple. A landlord dispute about double charging a deposit. But what made this different wasn't the paperwork. It was the way Karen Whitmore turned a routine case into a self-promotional lecture. From the moment she'd opened her mouth, it wasn't about the plaintiff, it was about her. Every line was an audition for credibility she didn't have. Judy had seen arrogance before, but this was different. This was calculated. Karen wasn't just defiant. She was trying to humiliate her. And that was the moment Judy decided this case would no longer be about money or tenancy. It was about something larger: truth, humility, and the silent power that arrogance always underestimates. "Ms. Whitmore," Judy began, her tone steady, surgical. "Let's keep this to the facts. When did your client pay the deposit?" Karen flipped through her folder, pretending to search for a paper she already knew she didn't have. "It was, I believe, mid-January." The plaintiff, Denise, hesitated, whispering, "It was March, actually." Karen shot her a sharp look, the kind of glare that silences the truth. "March, January, I'm irrelevant. The timeline isn't the issue here, Judge. It's the principle of fairness under statutory housing rights," the audience murmured. They weren't legal experts, but they knew disrespect when they saw it. Judy remained perfectly still, her fingers interlocked on the bench. "Ms. Whitmore," she said, "principles are only useful when they apply to reality." Karen's smile flickered, but she recovered quickly. "With all due respect, Judge, reality is often subjective depending on interpretation. I've taught—" Judy's eyebrow lifted, but her lips stayed pressed together. Not a word. Not yet. Karen misread the silence as permission and kept talking. "Dozens of students about the misuse of judicial authority. And while I appreciate your experience, this courtroom could benefit from a more academic approach." That sentence, "this courtroom could benefit from a more academic approach," hit the air like a slap. A few people in the back gasped. Someone snickered. Even Bird, the bailiff, raised his brows. The entire energy of the room shifted. Judy finally leaned back. "Is that so?" Karen nodded proudly. "Yes, I actually published an article about it, on judicial temperament and performative rulings." The producer at the camera whispered, "Oh, this is gold," but Judy wasn't smiling. She wasn't amused. She was studying her. Every inflection, every misplaced word, every time Karen said judge like it was lowercase. "Tell me something, Ms. Whitmore," Judy said, her tone soft but dangerous. "You've published work on judicial temperament?" Karen straightened, thinking she had the upper hand. "That's right. It's cited quite often." Judy tilted her head. "Really? In what journal?" Karen blinked. The American Law Review." Judy's clerk glanced up, brow furrowed slightly. She whispered to another assistant near the computer terminal, who began typing. Karen didn't notice. She was still talking. "It's not technically peer-reviewed yet, but it's in circulation. My students use it." Judy folded her hands. "And you're currently teaching at—" "California State University, Los Angeles campus," Karen replied quickly. "I've been there 8 years." The clerk's typing grew faster. Her eyes scanned the monitor, lips tightening. She scribbled something on a sticky note and slid it toward Judy's right hand. Discreet, silent. Judy didn't even glance down. She let it sit. She was saving it. 8 years, Judy repeated calmly. "You must enjoy your work." "I do," Karen said. "It's important to raise the next generation of legal minds. Not everyone understands how modern law evolves. Some people," she looked pointedly at Judy, "are stuck in traditional frameworks." The courtroom went completely still. Even the buzzing light overhead seemed to hold its breath. Judy looked down at the folder, turned one page, then looked back up. Her eyes were sharper now, glinting with something the cameras couldn't quite name. Not anger, but precision. "You're right," she said finally. "Some people are stuck. The difference, Ms. Whitmore, is that some of us are stuck on truth." Karen's smirk faltered for the first time. "Excuse me? You heard me," Judy said, her voice still calm. "I said truth. You remember it, don't you? The thing professors are supposed to teach." The audience erupted in quiet laughter, but Judy's tone wasn't meant to entertain. She wasn't performing. She was positioning. The same way John Kennedy did when Edward Chen thought he owned the courtroom. Karen turned to the cameras as if seeking allies. "You're twisting my words." "No," Judy said. "You're bending your image." That line landed like a punch wrapped in velvet. Karen opened her binder again, flipping through disorganized papers, anything to reclaim control. "Judge, if we could focus on the actual dispute—" "Oh, we are," Judy said softly. "We're focusing on it more closely than you think." Karen's voice rose. "This isn't a game." "Neither is lying about who you are," Judy replied quietly. And with that, Judy finally reached for the sticky note the clerk had slid earlier. Her eyes skimmed it for 1 second. Then she placed it face down beside her and smiled faintly. "You know, Ms. Whitmore," she said, "I once had a student just like you. Brilliant in appearance, confident in tone, completely certain she could outtalk everyone in the room. But she had one problem. Her facts didn't exist." Karen stiffened. "Are you implying—" "I'm not implying anything," Judy said. "I'm simply saying I recognize the type." The crowd's energy shifted again, from amusement to suspense. Everyone felt it. Something was coming. Judy wasn't done. She was waiting. Watching. Giving Karen the exact amount of rope she needed to hang her own claim. Karen's voice cracked slightly. "I have nothing to hide." "Good," Judy said softly. "Then you won't mind if we check." Karen blinked, caught off guard. "Check?" "Your credentials," Judy said. "You've repeated your title 5 times now. You teach law, correct? You said it yourself. 8 years at California State University." Karen nodded slowly, unsure if this was a trap or a test. "That's right," Judy looked toward her clerk. "Please verify the faculty list for that university. Public record. Shouldn't take long." Karen laughed nervously, waving a hand. "You don't need to do that. It's all online." Judy's eyes narrowed slightly. "Exactly," the audience whispered. Some grinned. Others held their breath. Karen's phone buzzed on the table, an email notification flashing across the screen. She turned it face down. Judy noticed. She didn't comment. Not yet, because this wasn't just about one woman lying for attention. This was about something deeper, the illusion of authority. The modern arrogance that hides behind credentials, applause, and titles. And Judy, for the first time in a long time, was letting someone else think they were in control just long enough to expose the truth. She leaned back slightly and said with that quiet power that could freeze an entire room, "We'll take a brief recess." Karen scoffed, thinking she'd won. "Of course, Judge, take all the time you need." But she didn't know that Judy didn't need time. She already had the truth. And soon the world would too. When the courtroom resumed after recess, the atmosphere was noticeably different. The laughter had quieted. The audience, who once treated the spectacle as entertainment, now leaned forward in their seats, sensing something had shifted beneath the surface. Judge Judy walked in, her movements unhurried, her expression unreadable. But there was something in her eyes, an almost invisible sharpness like the glint of a blade hidden in velvet. Karen Whitmore, still radiating smug confidence, mistook the calm for concession. "Welcome back, everyone," Judy began. Her voice was even, but its precision could slice through steel. "Before we continue with arguments, I'd like to revisit something from before the break." Karen crossed her arms, lips curling slightly. "Of course, Judge, I'm glad you had time to review my notes." Judy looked up slowly. "I didn't review your notes, Ms. Whitmore, I reviewed you." The room went dead silent. The plaintiff blinked in confusion. Even Bird, the bailiff, straightened subtly as if he'd just caught the scent of a storm. Karen laughed, a sound that felt too loud for the moment. "Excuse me? You reviewed me?" "That's right," Judy replied. She didn't blink. "You see, when someone claims to be a law professor, it's not unreasonable to verify, especially when that claim is made in a courtroom." Karen's smirk faltered. Are you suggesting I lied?" Judy didn't answer directly. She reached for a sheet of paper from her clerk, the same one that had been slid across the bench earlier. "My clerk conducted a brief search during recess," she said. "California State University, Los Angeles. Faculty list, Law Department, current and archived." She paused, her tone surgical. "There is no record of a Karen Whitmore employed, adjunct or otherwise." Gasps scattered through the courtroom like sparks. A camera zoomed in on Karen's face, catching the subtle tremor in her jaw before she could hide it behind another forced smile. "That's impossible," Karen snapped. I've been teaching for years. Maybe the database hasn't been updated. Judy leaned forward, her elbows resting on the bench. Then you won't mind telling us the name of your department chair. We can contact them right now. Karen blinked rapidly. That's not necessary. I've been on sabbatical. They might have temporarily removed my name. Judy's tone didn't rise, but the room felt smaller with every word. A sabbatical, she repeated softly. Yet you claim to have lectured just last week on judicial overreach. Do sabbaticals come with podiums now? A ripple of laughter cut through the silence, sharp and quick. Karen's cheeks flushed. She tried to wave it off. I guest lecture sometimes, all right. Universities rotate faculty. Then name one, Judy said. Any institution you've guest lectured at. We'll check, Karen swallowed. The silence stretched so long it became heavy. Finally, she muttered, You're really going to waste court time on this? Judy didn't move. Truth is never a waste of time, Ms. Whitmore, but lies? They tend to be expensive. That line hit like a quiet explosion. The audience exhaled collectively, a sound between awe and disbelief. For the first time, Karen looked uncertain, not because she'd been shouted at, but because Judy hadn't needed to raise her voice at all. Judd, Karen stammered. You're making me out to be some kind of fraud. I'm not making you anything, Judy cut in. You're doing that just fine yourself. The plaintiff, Denise, who had been silent for most of the case, finally spoke up. Ms. Whitmore, you told me you were a lawyer. That's why I let you represent me. Karen's head snapped toward her. I am a lawyer. Then show your bar card, Judy said flatly. Karen froze again. The audience was dead quiet now. Even the buzzing fluorescent light seemed to hold still. I didn't bring it, Karen said finally, her tone tight. Judy tilted her head slightly, the smallest motion, but it spoke volumes. That's unfortunate, she said. Because without proof, this court can't accept your representation of the plaintiff in any form. Karen's eyes widened. You're disqualifying me? No, Judy said softly. You disqualified yourself, the audience gasped again. The courtroom now felt like a theater where every word was a carefully timed cue. Judy leaned back slightly, eyes still locked on Karen. I've been in this courtroom long enough to know that arrogance often hides insecurity. But rarely have I seen someone so desperate for authority that they invent their own title. Karen's voice trembled. You think you can humiliate me on television? Judy didn't smile, but her tone turned almost gentle. I don't need to humiliate you. The truth already did. Karen slammed her folder shut. This is ridiculous. I don't need to prove anything to you. I know what I've accomplished. And yet, Judy said, Google disagrees. The audience broke into shocked laughter before the bailiff's raised hand silenced them again. Judy didn't move. She didn't even blink. The sentence had landed like a verdict. Karen's composure cracked visibly now, her breathing faster, her words sharper but less coherent. You have no right to investigate me. This isn't an investigation, Judy said. It's accountability. And if you truly were who you claim to be, you'd understand the difference. Karen's hand shook as she gathered her papers. You're going to regret this, she muttered. I doubt it, Judy replied. Because I already verified everything you've said today. Every claim, every title, every publication, none exist. Karen stared at her, speechless for the first time since she'd entered the courtroom. Then finally, Judy softened her tone, just slightly. You could have come in here as a person who made a mistake. You could have spoken the truth, and I would have respected that. But you chose to lie. To me, to your client, to everyone watching. And for what? Attention? Ego? Karen didn't answer. Judy sighed, looking almost tired now. Not angry, not triumphant, just disappointed. You see, Ms. Whitmore, arrogance always borrows confidence it can't afford. Eventually, the truth repossesses it. The silence that followed was total. The audience sat frozen, captivated not by the clash but by the calm aftermath of it. The quiet authority of someone who never needed to yell to win. Judy glanced toward her clerk. Please print the verification records and attach them to today's transcript. The clerk nodded quickly. Karen opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. She sank into her chair, her earlier bravado dissolving in real time. Judy looked at her one last time. Now, she said, shall we return to the actual case? Or do you need another recess to find yourself online? The audience laughed again, but beneath the humor was something deeper. Respect. The underdog had never raised her voice, yet she had reclaimed her courtroom. Her power and the truth, and this time, even the cameras seemed to know. Something extraordinary had just unfolded in a quiet, elegant takedown that only Judy could deliver. The courtroom had changed. You could feel it. What started as a stage for arrogance was now a quiet chamber of consequence. Karen sat rigid at the defendant's table, her once loud presence shrinking into silence. Her hands trembled slightly as she reshuffled papers she no longer needed, pretending to read, pretending to still be in control. But everyone knew the illusion had cracked. The cameras captured every twitch of her lip, every nervous glance toward Judge Judy, who sat higher, calmer, and infinitely more powerful than before. But Judy wasn't done. She never struck once and left it there. When truth appeared, she gave it time to breathe, to expose every layer of deceit beneath it. That was her genius, not rage, not spectacle, but the deliberate, merciless patience of someone who knew that lies collapsed under their own weight. She looked down at her desk, where a small printed document waited, simple, unassuming yet lethal in what it confirmed. Her clerk had verified every detail Karen had boasted about: the teaching position, the journal article, even the supposed sabbatical. All false. There wasn't a single trace of her name in any faculty directory, publication archive, or state bar record. Judy had proof now, but she didn't raise it yet. She let the truth simmer just under the surface, where arrogance still pretended it could survive. "Ms. Whitmore," Judy said, voice steady. "Before we proceed, I'd like to ask you one more question." Karen hesitated, trying to sound composed. "Of course, Judge. You've claimed to be a law professor for 8 years, correct?" "Yes, that's right." "And you've represented yourself here as such, publicly on national television?" Karen nodded a little too quickly. "Yes, I don't see why that's relevant." Judy leaned back, her hands folded. "It's very relevant. Because when someone presents themselves as an expert in this courtroom, the viewers at home, students, young lawyers, ordinary people, might believe them. They might think your words carry authority, and authority without truth is dangerous." The room fell utterly silent. That wasn't a judge speaking anymore, it was something larger. A moral warning disguised as a question. Karen tried to regain control. "Judge, I understand the importance of integrity, but I don't think this minor discrepancy changes the facts of the case." "Minor discrepancy," Judy repeated softly. "Claiming an entire career that doesn't exist is not a discrepancy. It's deception." Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Judy continued, her voice calm, deliberate, each word landing like a gavel. "I've seen people lie for money, for pride, for fear. But this," she gestured faintly toward Karen, "this is different. You didn't lie because you had to. You lied because you thought you could." The audience gasped quietly. It wasn't entertainment anymore. It was revelation. Judy reached for the paper beside her and glanced at it again, not to remind herself. She already knew every word, but to give Karen a chance to see it, to sense the trap tightening. "You mentioned earlier," Judy said, "that you published an article in the American Law Review." "Yes," Karen said faintly. "And you've lectured at universities across California?" Karen hesitated. "That's right." "Then perhaps you can explain," Judy said, her tone still even, "why the American Law Review has no record of any article by your name." Karen blinked rapidly. They must have removed it. Maybe it wasn't archived yet. "And why California State University has no record of you? No contract, no teaching history, not even a guest lecture." Karen's hand shook now. "I told you I'm on leave. Maybe they're updating their database." Judy finally looked up, locking eyes with her. "Then tell me, Ms. Whitmore," she said slowly, "why does the California State Registrar's Office confirm that you've never been employed or associated with their law program in any capacity?" The sound of silence was deafening. The courtroom froze. Karen's face went pale. The words didn't just hit, they stripped her bare. Her voice cracked as she tried to respond. "That can't be right. Someone must have made a mistake." "There was no mistake," Judy said, her voice soft but cold. "The only mistake was yours, thinking you could lie under oath and hide behind titles you never earned." The audience's breath caught collectively. Even Bird, unflappable after decades beside her, gave a small shake of his head. Karen slumped slightly, her posture no longer proud, her eyes darting to the cameras, as if begging for sympathy. But the viewers at home would see it differently. They wouldn't see a victim. They'd see a fraud unraveling in real time. Judy let the silence linger, then set the papers down gently, like closing a case file. "This court doesn't punish ignorance," she said, "but it will always expose arrogance." For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the studio lights. Then Judy turned her gaze toward the plaintiff. "Ms. Denise, you don't need to be represented by anyone but the truth. Would you like to continue your case on your own?" Denise nodded quickly, tears in her eyes. "Yes, Your Honor." Judy gave her a small nod of respect, then looked back at Karen one last time. "Ms. Whitmore, I'll allow you to remain seated. But from this point forward, you'll remain silent unless spoken to. I think we've all heard enough lectures for one day." Karen opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. Her voice failed her. The audience exhaled collectively. The power balance had fully shifted. No longer two equals debating, but one woman standing in the ruins of her own arrogance, facing another who had reclaimed the entire room without ever raising her tone. The clerk handed Judy another document. One last confirmation. Judy read it silently, then nodded. All right, she said softly. Let's proceed with what's left of this case. But before turning the page, she looked once more at Karen, her tone calm but final. And Ms. Whitmore, if there's one thing I hope you take from today, it's this. You can't claim to teach law if you still need to learn truth. The words hung in the air like scripture. Karen didn't respond. She couldn't. Her silence was louder than her arrogance had ever been. The crowd remained silent for a moment longer, then, almost involuntarily, applause erupted. Quiet at first, then growing stronger. Judy didn't acknowledge it. She didn't smile. She simply lifted her pen, ready to continue. For her, this wasn't victory. It was balance restored. And for everyone watching, it wasn't just another courtroom story. It was a reminder that truth doesn't need to shout to win. It just needs someone brave enough to let it speak. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses, glanced once at her clerk, and said calmly, "Bring up the university website." The clerk's fingers moved swiftly on the keyboard. Within seconds, the monitor on Judy's desk glowed with a search bar and a simple phrase typed in bold: California State University Law Faculty Directory. The audience leaned forward, breath held. Karen tried to smile, but her lips quivered. Judy turned the screen slightly toward her. "Now, Ms. Whitmore," she said, her voice smooth as glass. "You said you've been teaching here for 8 years, correct?" Karen nodded nervously. "That's right." Judy's finger moved to the keyboard. The faint clicking echoed through the courtroom. She scrolled slowly, eyes following the names. "Interesting," she murmured. "I see Adams, Bennett, Clark. No Whitmore." She scrolled further. The silence became unbearable. "Let's try searching it directly," she said. She typed Karen Whitmore faculty. Nothing. Karen's voice cracked. Maybe it's under a different listing." Judy leaned back, voice now sharp enough to cut the air. "Different listing? Or different reality?" The audience gasped. Karen's facade shattered. Her hands trembled as she tried to explain, but Judy raised her hand slightly. No anger, just authority. "I've been in law longer than you've been pretending to teach it," she said softly. "And there's one lesson every real lawyer learns. The truth doesn't hide on page 2 of Google." The courtroom erupted in stunned murmurs. Karen slumped in her chair, eyes glistening. Judy closed the laptop, her tone final. "We're done here." And just like that, in a single quiet reveal, Judy didn't just win. She restored something that arrogance had tried to steal: respect for truth. The courtroom felt utterly different now. Lighter, yet heavier in meaning. The arrogance that had once filled the air was gone, replaced by something deeper. Humility, silence, and an unspoken respect for truth. The audience didn't whisper anymore. They watched, still processing what they'd witnessed. The camera zoomed in on Karen, her face pale, her earlier confidence erased. She wasn't the professor she'd claimed to be. She wasn't even a legal expert. She was just a woman who had built her identity on a lie, and watched it collapse live, one Google search at a time. Judy leaned back slightly, her hands resting calmly on the bench. She wasn't gloating. She never did. There was no victory smirk, no satisfaction in destroying someone, only that familiar composure, the expression of someone who'd seen too many people think they could outsmart integrity and lose every time. "Ms. Whitmore," she said quietly, "what you've done here today is more than just an embarrassment to yourself. It's a reminder of what happens when ego replaces honesty." Karen looked down, unable to meet her eyes. "I didn't mean to—" "Yes, you did," Judy interrupted softly. "You meant to control the story. You wanted power without proof, but power without truth is an illusion." A faint murmur of agreement spread through the audience. Even Denise, the plaintiff, seemed to feel the gravity of it. She looked at Judy with admiration, not just because she'd exposed a fraud, but because she'd done it without cruelty. Judy didn't need to shout to win. She made the truth do the talking. Karen's voice broke. "I just wanted to be respected." Judy nodded slowly. "Respect isn't taken, Ms. Whitmore, it's earned. And it's only earned when you have the courage to be authentic, even when that truth isn't flattering." The words hit hard, not as punishment, but as clarity. Karen wiped her tears silently. For the first time, she wasn't acting. The performance was over. Judy looked at the clerk. "Please note for the record that the defendant misrepresented her qualifications. The court will proceed without her input." Then she turned back to Karen. "You may stay seated. Learn something. Because this moment isn't about punishment. It's about growth." The room stayed still. For a long, breathless second, the atmosphere was pure reflection. No cameras, no applause. Just truth echoing through wood-paneled walls. Finally, Judy spoke one last time, her voice soft but unforgettable. "The law doesn't just protect people from lies, Ms. Whitmore. It reminds us that every lie eventually meets its teacher. Karen lowered her head. I understand, Your Honor. Judy nodded once. Good, then maybe today wasn't a loss. Maybe it was your first real lesson. The cameras panned slowly over the courtroom. Judy calm, Karen humbled, Denise relieved. It wasn't just another case closed. It was a story about pride, truth, and the quiet authority of a woman who didn't need to prove she was right. She simply was. The courtroom was quiet again. The kind of silence that follows closure, not chaos. Karen remained seated, her eyes red but open, finally seeing what her arrogance had blinded her to all along. The truth hadn't destroyed her. It had simply removed everything false, and in that emptiness something real began to surface. Judge Judy stood slowly, gathering her papers. This case is dismissed, she said, her tone calm but resonant. But let today serve as a reminder, for everyone watching, that credentials can be forged but character cannot. She turned her gaze toward Karen one final time. And if you ever wish to teach law, start by learning humility. It's the first rule they don't print in textbooks. The audience erupted into quiet applause, not the kind born from spectacle, but from respect. Even the plaintiff, Denise, smiled softly through tears. The cameras captured every moment, Judy's calm exit, the faint sunlight spilling through the blinds, and Karen's silent reflection at the defendant's table. As Judy walked past the bench, Bird whispered, Another one taught, huh? Judy gave a small smile. No, she said softly. Another one reminded, outside the courtroom. The world would soon explode with headlines. Fake law professor exposed on live TV. But none of that mattered to Judy. What mattered was that truth had spoken again, simply and quietly, the way it always does. Narration closed the story like a moral echo. Arrogance shouts. Truth whispers. And when the noise fades, it's the whisper that remains. Because authority isn't power, it's honesty practiced under pressure. If you believe truth always finds a way to speak, no matter who tries to silence it, share this story, subscribe for more, and comment Truth wins, because in Judge Judy's courtroom it always does.